Good afternoon, good morning. In some cases, we're right across Canada. We know that we've got about 30 people that have signed up today, and those that may not be able to make today, first of all, I appreciate those that have made the call today. But for those that haven't been able to make it, you're listening to this as a send out video, which I'll send out to everybody. So rest assured that if we don't get to your question today, I'm happy to answer questions. I'll have my email at the end of this, and you can certainly reach out to me personally to ask any questions or have a conversation one-on-one. So we're going to talk about this very fast-growing field, this burgeoning field of impact analysis, and talk a little bit about that and talk about the program today. And I've got colleagues that have joined me in the background, and I appreciate them there, Christina and Jason, and welcome to you. And I've got other folks, colleagues that are listening from programs at the business school, Karen Blake, who is part of the Business for Good program at the Smith School of Business. So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we're on today. And while we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effect of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can each, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So welcome to the university here at Queen's. Welcome to the Smith School of Business that this program is a part of. You can see behind me the Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Social Impact, where this program resides. I'll talk about its history in the economics department and the move to the business school. But welcome to Queen's University today. We're going to talk about the Certificate in Professional Impact Analysis. We're currently in our second cohort as we speak right now. We've got a class in, and the new one, which this is about to provide you information. It's not too early to sign up. We're building a class that'll start January 12th, and it'll run over 6 months in a very leisurely, very comfortably paced way. And I'll talk about that in terms of the schedule. But just to give you a sense of the program, my name is Glenn Hollis. I am also part of the program, but have taken the program and have been with the business school for a number of years and have run programs throughout the school. And I'm delighted to be here to tell you about this program today. So in a nutshell, 30,000 feet, this is the only program that measures good. And you're going to hear a lot about this idea of measuring good, why do it, how to do it, how you can get involved in doing it. But it is about looking at ways that companies, organizations take programs, investments in this idea of good, societal benefit, social gain, whatever it might be, business for good, as we'll talk about. So what's the story here? Well, great brands, great companies, great organizations have this sense of a greater purpose, much bigger than just selling things or conducting services or business or providing levels of service in government to people. It's about a sense of people, planet, and communities. And that's really what we're about, this idea of a greater sense of purpose. These leaders, these organizations, these great brands, companies, entities, they tend to put their money and their heart and head where they really want to focus on this idea of good. And a lot of investments fall into this category, as we'll talk about, of doing good. And you can do both well and do good. And that's really the thrust of this and why we thought it's important to bring it into the business school, because more and more organizations have this greater sense of purpose, greater sense of bigger than just the company that the product they may sell, the service they may provide, or in the case of not-for-profit or government, things that they may do, this idea of doing good. And the question becomes, how do you measure it? because we know that doing more good is good for an organization's success and ultimately good for the world. So it is this higher level sort of notion and thinking that we're really talking about today. So our mission here with the program is very simple. We want to enable leaders like you to measure good. And why we want to do that is so you can do more good. And this is really a self-fulfilling prophecy and endeavor. And again, you know the things that are going on at your organization, whether it's for-profit, not-for-profit, government on all different levels, NGOs, whatever it might be. But this idea of doing good is increasingly a more and more important thing, and it's receiving more and more scrutiny. So when we're talking about this, there's really two macro camps: this idea of community and societal betterment projects. And here you can think about things that governments may run at all three levels, or NGOs may run and be involved in. You can think about, Tim Hortons Children's Foundation, CIBC's Run for the Cure, those other CSR kind of projects. There's also increasingly this idea of business for good. And one of the students that we had in our MBA program, who works for a company called Ocean Steel, I'll talk about that when we get to some of the sample cases. More and more, they had customers asking for, beyond their traditional provision of steel, green steel. So it became a question of, is this both something that we know customers want, but is it going to be good for us from a profitability standpoint? No shame in profit. And is it going to be good for the world, good for the carbon footprint, et cetera? So we're seeing more and more projects, Suncor, Petro-Canada, many, many others that are looking at these different business for good investments as well. And we'll talk about that. So the question becomes, how do you measure these good investments? But bigger than that is, can you measure them? Can you measure good? And organizations are great, as you know, tracking all kinds of things: customer satisfaction, productivity, profitability, whatever it might be. But few know how to really measure beyond proxies of measure, how to measure social, environmental, and economic impacts that have fallen into this camp of good. And they may look at ways to measure it. I mentioned proxies, but there's not always a strong sense of rigor and discipline and evidence base when it comes to financial, as there is with financial reporting. So the good news, the breaking news about this particular webinar is we now have a way to do that. And this program, this CPIA program, allows you to do that. Provision of good tools, techniques, approaches, strong content and understanding of how to go about it, cases, examples. How do we measure this return on investment for social investment? And that's an important piece. And the good news is this is a growing area of careers and a growing area of business and organizations. So why is it important to measure it? Well, more and more we're seeing stakeholders. We're seeing people that are interested in measuring this, and that could be customers, it could be employees, it could be community, it could be government, influencers, suppliers, what have you. There's an increasing demand by these interested parties to answer the question: are we getting bang for our buck? Are we getting value out of where we're putting our limited dollars? And this becomes important because if it's not-for-profit government, you've got people like investors that may be the form of providing some level of dollars into the organization. And you may get people that are voters. And are we getting what we wanted to out of a particular program? And when it comes to business, you want to understand, when you have limited dollars, are we putting it in the right space? Are we getting any measure of value out of it? Because you need to report that. So that could be also donations when it comes to not-for-profit or NGOs. So it is this idea of being able to measure good and bring that to the forefront, right beside financial measures and other measures in an organization. So we make decisions based on these financial accounting management techniques, and there's compliance and reporting, but it really comes down to this idea of making better decisions. No different now that we're able to measure quantitatively, evidence-based, and very empirically, this idea of measuring good. And we can put that right beside all of our financial accounting and other management techniques and approaches. So this gives you this sense of rigor and transparency when it comes to measuring impact. And that's really what we're talking about with this particular program. I'd invite you to think about throwing in any questions as we're going through this. Happy to look at those after, throw them into the chat. And we've got some questions that were sent in advance, and I'll get to those as well. But as I say, and if I don't answer your question or you've got a question that lingers after, I will leave my email at the end of this. And respectful of your time, I'm going to try and land this in about 30 minutes. We're happy to stay as we're going through different questions. So how do we measure impact? Well, we've got tools now. We've got this sense, this program of impact analysis, and that's something that's been put together. And I'll talk about the faculty and the history of it, but really based on three particular macro areas of content. Impact foundations, defining the impact of an organization, whether that's for-profit or not-for-profit, and also looking at accounting techniques and approaches. And don't be scared off by that, because we're really talking about cost-benefit analysis. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But it really is quantifying your footprint. How do we put measures beyond simple proxies, but how do we put measures, it could be dollar measures, against these particular endeavors, these activities, so that we can measure them and compare them quantitatively? And then finally, this idea of evaluating and learning, reporting, managing, and adapting. And I'll talk a lot about this idea of reporting, because you need to, at the end of this, tell a good story. And that's important because you've got many different eyeballs when it comes to those that are interested in the results of impact investments and projects. So let me just step back and talk a little bit about the content and delivery approach. We built this program intentionally to be flexible. So it is 3 modules that find their way over 6 months. Each module is 20 hours long, so there's 4 lectures, that happen over 4 weeks. So you've got a lecture a week. And at the end of that, there's a mini quiz based on the content. There's a mini assignment based on the content. And then we've got 4 of those lectures. And then after that, we've got a capstone, a live but virtual capstone. The modules are comprised of these lectures, which you can go back, watch, rewatch, etc. And then the capstone, which is a live but virtual day, once each of the 3 modules, where all of the students will gather together. We'll put you in teams. We've got coaches for each teams. We've got the faculty that attend as well. And the purpose of this is to really bring to life all of the content, the lectures that you've learned over the last 4 weeks prior to the capstone. So each of those also is complemented by a live coffee chat once a week. It's absolutely voluntary, but it allows you to live meet with the professors and ask them about the lectures, the content, and often it branches off into discussions that are very topical, things like tariffs, which are fairly topical. But it is intended to provide that additional layer of value when it comes to the program. At the end of the program, there is a certification exam, and then you'll get certification credentials. And that program is 3 modules, and again, it is intentionally spread out comfortably over 6 months. So the program costs, these 3 modules, total cost of $7,500. You can pay, as you hit each module. So really kind of played out over 6 months. It includes everything: program materials, lectures, coaching, capstone, access to the faculty, case studies, certification exam, credentials, etc. And as I mentioned, you don't need to pay it all at once. We've got a program you can pay as you go, if you will. We've also got discounts available for those that bring in 3 or more. We've got a number of organizations, companies, entities that have brought 3 or more people to the program, and we then take $2,000 off per student, so pretty significant. And we've also got scholarships, entrance scholarships for First Nations students. We've intentionally built this flexible, the 3 modules, as I mentioned, over the 6 months, and again, full certification at the end. And there is a tax receipt you receive where you can take this program cost and write it off against your income. And this is a T2202 that we provide. So the program is run by three professors, one from the business school, Dr. Elspeth Murray, who teaches strategy and runs the Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Social Impact. And the program was started some years ago in the economics department by two professors, Dr. Bauman Kashi and Dr. Chris Cotton. And we've brought them into the business school, as it were, and they teach the program both with a lens of what they've done in the past with NGOs and government, but also now with a lens and Elspeth's influence and input with respect to for-profit business and the business school itself. We've got a number of alumni from the business school, those that were in the BCom program, those that were in graduate programs, MBAs, MFINs, etc. But again, you don't need to have an undergraduate in business. You don't need to have an undergraduate in economics. This is not deeply mired in business or so mired in business or in economics that you would need degrees from that. It's intentionally accessible in all the ways that I mean that, flexibility, but also content. So the modules themselves, just to give you a brief overview, I talked about impact foundations, and here you'll understand the concept of impact. What does it mean in different organizations? How is it considered from a societal benefit cost standpoint? And you'll start to gain cases and examples and a toolkit where you can start to really understand these ideas, this idea of impact. The second module, again, 4 lectures, a capstone, is looking at impact accounting. And this is really, in a nutshell, looking at cost-benefit analysis, understanding how to do that in a simple way, but understanding how you can take measures, evidence, and empirical underpinning to actually measure impact, not in a way that is simply based on proxies of measure. But it looks at ways that organizations, companies have done it. It brings in case studies and examples. There's a toolkit to do this. And this is really giving you that rigor and discipline to be able to go forward and do it yourself or teach it to others. And then finally, there's evaluating and learning as a module. 4 lectures, a capstone, case studies, examples, a toolkit. And this is where you're looking at reporting. How do you tell the story of what you've measured and what were the results were of that measure? And this is to be able to answer the mail when it comes to interested stakeholders and influencers that have sway in the organization or interest in how you're spending money or donations or what have you. And these are 3 important components of this particular program, and designed to be very digestible, rewatch the videos, etc. So to give you a sense of some of the cases that we dealt with and deal with, here's an example of Coca-Cola, and they were looking at switching to social plastic. Answering the mail from a real impact analysis. Is it socially justifiable? Is it financially viable? This idea of doing both well and doing good. And is it feasible? Can we spread it out to our other organizations? RBC, this idea of ESG investments. Is it defensible? And what additional data may be needed to provide a real story to how we're going about this idea of social return on investments? Because more and more individuals or portfolios are asking about this idea of social investment, ESG investments. So how do we make that so it's bulletproof? Tourmaline Oil. Tourmaline was looking at switching from what was traditionally powered machinery to natural gas powered machinery. What's the impact on greenhouse gas emissions? And is it financially viable for us to do that? How can we tell that story to our shareholders, to our employees, to our customers? World Health Organization. And again, the usual suspects of programs that have impact, things like, providing food for the world or for underprivileged children. How do we measure the improvements? What does it cost? And what value do we get from this from a health and a trade standpoint? How can we build it such that we can apply it across our different organizations? Tim Hortons Children's Foundation, I've been involved in this. I was with Tim Hortons for a number of years, and we looked to measure the foundation itself because we knew that we had a really good thing in these camps and helping economically disadvantaged children get to camps. But we really wanted to measure it in a more significant way. And we wanted to tell a good story. Are they going on to post-secondary or to finish their high school? Are they going on to post-secondary? Are they giving back? How do we measure that beyond simple proxies or, yeah, we think it's a good thing. We know in our gut it's a good thing. But are we truly making a difference? And should we ask our franchisees to invest more to build another camp? Should we look at some other program that we run that has benefit, Timbits Hockey, or as an example, or Smile Cookie, or some other program? So these were some of the CSR, corporate social responsibility programs that we were involved in. On the business for good, we looked at, should we sell fair trade coffee? Should we embark upon signing up and investing into that particular aspect of coffee provision? Or should we create our own? Ultimately, we created our own because we were able to measure that there's greater value in the coffee partnership program. Fair hiring practices, sustainable distribution when it came to outfitting our fleet, turning it all electric or hybrid approach. So these are business investments we wanted to measure. Are we doing well with these, and are we doing good with these? And that's sort of a flavor of kind of things that go on. I mentioned Ocean Steel. One of our students that was in the program was looking at this because he had more and more customers asking for steel that was green. They wanted to build particular structures, but they also were aware of, mindful of this idea of GHG, greenhouse gas emissions. And are you able to provide steel in a significant way, significant volume, such that we can procure that from Ocean Steel? Is it going to be good for the environment, the world, and is it going to be good for the company itself? So these are the kind of things that we look at. And the goal of this is to really understand, how do we take empirical measures and understand how we can measure impact such that we can make good decisions and provide information and rationalization for programs that we've got many, many stakeholders that are interested in. And again, I invite you to throw in any questions. So who should attend this program? Who's in the program? Who's been in the program? Well, it's leaders of today and tomorrow, people that are interested in making a difference. And you may be directly involved in your organization right now in measuring impact. You may be on the periphery of doing that. You may be interested in changing careers within your organization or pivoting to another organization. And we've had guest speakers. We've had Louise Kent that came in and talked about her role at Mighty Hum as the Chief Impact Officer, which is a growing role within many organizations. And this is a growing aspect of business, because more and more there's a greater ask for information and measure around impact programs or corporate social responsibility, or as Karen well knows, business for good. How do we measure that? Because companies, organizations are interested in answering the mail to their employees, to their partners, to their suppliers, to their customers, or to their shareholders or board. Dr. Bauman-Kashi talks about these impact officers of tomorrow needing this foundation, needing this information, this content, because you want to be able to define, measure, manage, monitor, evaluate, and deliver this knowledge. Because I talked a lot about this being, it's more than good intentions, which was a book that was written years ago. But it is about more than good intentions. It's about telling a good story with the empirical underpinning of being able to rationalize the measure of that impact, the measure of that good. And that's really what we put together in this program. So I invite you to throw in any questions. And again, love you to go to the website, take a look. You can sign up right there, pay for it right there. Certainly ask any more questions of me. Feel free to send out any questions to me directly. I'm happy to answer them one-on-one with you. We've had a number of questions that were sent in before, and again, I'd invite you to throw into the chat anything that you, or the Q&A rather, anything you want. So I'll answer one right now. Interested in pivoting career into new organizations or starting my own social enterprise? Fair. We've had a number of entrepreneurs in this that support similar social enterprise and impact. Are there any placement opportunities, networking, or connections available? We don't have a formal placement component with this, with our career center. However, we have a number of networking sessions set up. I mentioned Louise Kent. We've set up 4 networking sessions so far, even over this year. These webinar series one of which was with Louise Kent, another we had with the federal government organization on environment. But we bring together all of the students. We create networking opportunities, fireside chat, if you will. And we also have a very active LinkedIn group that we continue to feed with white papers and create social and elements of connection so that they can share ideas or share opportunities for placement or jobs. So happy to answer more on that as we get into the program. But as I say, we have set up formal networking sessions as part of this. And also within each of the 3 live but virtual capstone days, full days, you are cross-pollinating with the other students in the program. You're cross-pollinating with coaches that are often in the industry in the space of measuring impact. And those are another opportunity to ask more and to network more. One of the questions we had was around this idea of, is it mathy? Meaning, is this a heavy math program? And the answer is no. I mean, we've had this question come up, and Dr. Chris Cotton, we posed that question to. It's not about math. It's about cost-benefit analysis. Very accessible. I took the course. I'm not a math background by any measure. My background's in marketing. But there's a few spreadsheets in the second module, but the classes are not about math. They're about ideas. It's about measuring good. It's about looking for ways to measure good. And as Dr. Cotton says, at the end of the day, those who come in uncomfortable with economics and math will leave being comfortable with looking at and thinking about numbers as analysis as it relates to measuring impact. So no, it's not mathy. There is cost-benefit analysis. There is an underpinning of evidence that we bring to the fore when it comes to this program, and that's intentional because we want to move beyond the proxies and start to look at cost-benefit analysis. So that's certainly something to think about. So again, I'd invite you to throw in any other questions, or as I mentioned, directly send me any questions you've got. I put up my email again. If you're listening to this in the video, and I'll send out the video to everybody, please feel free to reach out to me. And we're putting together a great program, a great class starting in January. It's not too early to apply. Again, be happy to answer questions after this as well. So I don't see any other questions in the chat, in the Q&A rather, but please feel free to reach out to me. I'll thank Jason and Christina as well one more time. And I welcome contact with anybody that's listening to this. All the best and have a good day.